For me, the defining of Zelda's experience was Link's Awakening. It was the first Zelda title I played the most challenging. It took me longer to clear than any other game. I was pretty young. That said, it was pretty clear as to why this bothered me so much. A few months ago, I was helping a friend of mine move. After a few hours of heavy lifting, we took a short break. I took a box of an old Game Boy cartridges and lit my eyes up. I liked the new systems, but I still like digging bust out of that old 18-bit handheld, or at least I did. The guy we were helping saw me and asked if I felt like buying any. I pulled out a couple and then I spotted it, Link's Awakening. I lost mine and was looking to replace it. He looked at me confused when I asked him how much he wanted it. He forgot he owned it. I paid him and pocketed the games, and we went back to work. I should have stressed this. There was nothing wrong with the cartridge. The label was fine and the cartridge wasn't cracked or anything. I probably shouldn't have bought it otherwise. The game started off normally. There was nothing off about the music, color, or animation. I was stoked to play it again, and then I went to start a file. Something felt wrong. First off, there was no music, and there was this barely audible thumping noise every other second. When next it was on top of the right screen, the knight statues had been replaced with two stafflows, different from what I remembered. The thing that convinced me was the defect was that there was only one empty file, and the other two were gone. At this point, the thumping noise started to annoy me, so I started the file entered as Link. The game was faulty, but I was curious to see how. It started off with Link, tossing and turning while Marin watches. There was no music, but the thumping noise was gone. When I woke up, Maureen said the wait is over, and then she said she'd make preparations and left the room. I tried to leave only to be stopped at the door by a dialogue box that simply read, prompting me to speak with the Terran. His friendly tone was gone. He was pleading with me, offering my shield and asking me to go. He begged, saying that he'd tell me where the sword was. The usual sound effect for text was replaced with something duller and strangely paced. His wording and tone made it sound like Terran was crying. He then insisted that I must be hungry, promising to make me mushroom stew before rushing out of the room. It wasn't defective, it was hacked. Realizing that made the sequence with Terran a bit interesting. I started exploring the village and with the physical layout of everything, that was the same as I remembered, except for two things. All the human characters that lived outside the village were now in it, except for the witch. Richard and Cuckoo Keeper were standing near the cuckoo statue. Crazy Tracy was on the other center of the field of bushes, and the second fisherman was beneath the first, and right beside the library. The music was the same track used for the village in the original, but slower and more scratchy. Second, the crane game was gone. In its place was filled, fenced off by lit torches. Inside was a large collection of bone piles, the same one used in caves and dungeons. In this area there was no music, just a low pitch broken up by sharp, awkward breaks. Every villager laughed and said that I couldn't be him because I had no sword, except for one that was Aurora. His sprite changed from how his eyebrows were lowered angrily. The sword comment was an obvious hint, so I headed towards the beach. I made my own way down, the music fading to silence. Oddly, there were no monsters. I was even more confused and bothered by it. I went for the sword. The owl flew down when I got near it. He cackled and walked about how he was glad to fulfill his role. He ordered me to take down the sword and go to the mysterious forest before flying off. I grabbed the sword, not to where the enemies to fight with, and headed back towards the village forest. Near the village, the owl appeared again. Walking towards it caused him to scream about it and how you can't go, that they can't know, and how they don't deserve to. The game was forcing me to the forest, the layout of which had been changed. From the first screen I could go only right, and where I found the witch's hut. The dull thumping noise started again. When I entered it, it became faster. Speaking with the witch made it even louder and even faster. She insisted that there were other ways to make it, and offered to power to a way out. The game shot out for this brief high-pitched screeching noise. Syrup's sprite stopped moving and no further had any text prompted. I left the hut and headed straight to right. The next screen was more familiar. It was Terran in his raccoon form. The crying sound from earlier looping, louder this time. He charged and began doing damage, crying as he did. The shield kept them off of me, letting me pull up my inventory. The magic powder had been outed. I threw some onto him, thinking it would cure him. His sprite movements became faster, and the text appeared as he screamed about how his skin was burning. A new animation played, and the game would release in another one of those high-pitched screeches. This one lasted for the whole animation, mixing different sound effects. Lines of darkness began to cover Terran's sprite until he was covered. The arms fell off, his eyes disappearing as the ground was stained with his blood. The game was making sure I heard Terran suffering. I was horrified. He hit the ground, a pile of blood and guts. The crying sounds looped softly. The owl flew in and marked how excellent it was. I had done it almost to the letter. He screamed at me to put that thing out of its misery. I had no idea what to do. A new dialogue box popped up and Terran whimpering out the sword. I turned off the game. A few minutes later I turned it back on, annoyed at the idea of the hacker getting one over on me. The file name had changed from Link to Black. I was intimidated, but determined. It brought me to the point where I had just left it. The fact that it hadn't saved me made me nervous. Everything was the same except Link's clothing. I couldn't tell if it was meant to be red or black, but the file's name gave me a hint. I cut at the Terran sprite. The panels below Terran became dark and the game made a horrible screeching noise. The owl flapped its wings and laughed, prompting me. He ordered me deeper into the forest before saying, "Two down?" Hearing that, I went to the previous screen into Syrup's hut. There was a crudely drawn blood everywhere. Syrup's head was on their table. The rat was hopping up and down beside it, feasting. I searched around and found nothing until I reached the cauldron. The text appeared saying, "Still a few bones in there. What do you think of the magic powder was made of?" I saw it as a taunt and resolved to keep going. No enemies, no music, screen after screen of forest, with the soft high-pitched screech in the background. Eventually I had to go north, traveling for a few more screens before finding it. At the center of the screen was a black sword. To either side there were two treasure chests. The right contained the fire wand and the left the ocarina. Taking the sword, summoned the owl, who proceeded to teach me the lullaby of lawn slumber. It didn't sound like music, it just hisses and scratches, like a series of auto errors. He then asked me to try the wand, trying to leave have caused afraid to pop up. I used the wand trying to defy it. The screen flashed white for a second, followed by an eerie tree on fire. The owl giggled, flapping his wings and screaming about how they can be given to no quarter. Everything in the forest was on fire, including some floor panels. Eventually I was out, the high-pitched noise ringing the entire time with the sound of burning. I decided to talk to the villagers to see if there had been a change in their dialogue. I started at the Madame Meow Meow. The thumping noise started again, and I soon entered her scream. It was similar to the witch. Meow Meow started pleading, and the audio for her text sounded like crying. She apologized, saying that they were just too hungry. The same screeching noises before her sprite stops. When I left her house, Bow Wow was gone. I went back inside to see what happened. Meow Meow was in pieces, blood all over. Bow Wow was moving from piece to piece. Interacting with him brought up a box that talked about how happy he seemed, how hungry. Leaving the house, I saw the owl again. He was eager he was to keep going. He told me to play the lullaby. It would speed things along. The prospect bothered me, but getting through this insult to my childhood faster sounded good. Playing the lullaby led me to a room like one of those you found at the end of each dungeon. There was a treasure chest and had two full heart pieces, a plaque on the wall that read, "For every one you carry out, you'd receive new treasures. I looked at the items. The first was the rock's feather, and then left through the exit at the rear of the room, which brought me back to Marin's house. Trees blocked off the plains and beach by the forest fire. The glitch brought me back to the black screen that forced a reset. There was no way out of the village. It was a weird, cruel cycle. I approached a villager and they said something. That horrible screeching noise sounded out, and I came back to see something horrific and disturbing. I posted their dialogue and found them both there. Crazy Tracy, before you can do it, tell me I'm pretty. A bloody pile of skin to the right. You silenced my only symptom. I was merely first. His hand and tongue formed into a triangular around him. He was in a pool of blood. You actually made me think I'd go old age? How unkind. He was lying sideways, with the telephone where his head would have been, and the blood scattered all over the floor, made it look like his head had been smashed apart with a phone. Aurora's wife, I won't hide. I won't give you the pleasure. I never saw her, but when I tried to interact with the cabinets, it said, she's finished bleeding out. Leave her in there. Cuckoo Keeper. Haha, I'll find a way out. Impaled on the cuckoo statue. The fisherman. The funniest part? I don't regret it. Me neither. The fishing poles are by the pond. If you interact with them, it says, no more bubbles. You'd reel them up, but they'll just tear off. Papa, wife and child. Anything. Name it. It's yours. I can get it. I can get anything. Mercy. The one thing I couldn't get my hands on. Why? Found them hung by what appeared to be a hook-shot chain. Shopkeeper. Everything I've got, here and back home. Information, powders, weapons. Just let me sail away. You'll never hear from me again. Found him in pieces with arrows in his torso. The fact that the bombs and the bow are now missing from his stocking suggests that's what it was used. Mr. Wright, I never stopped, you know. There is a key. You'll need a magnifying lens. He was sitting at his desk, black pixels around where his mouth was, and his hand cut them off. I didn't catch to what the black pixels were about it until later. When I killed the last victim, the owl appeared. He thanked me for helping him fulfill his role. He said I'd find Marin in front of the library. I found Marin, who said that it was almost time to go. She gave me the magnifying lenses and told me to take my time. Inside there were more books out than the original, with one blank book stand near the entrance. Each was a profile organized by crime and sentence, from the top left to the bottom right. Richard staged a coup against the Hyrule royal family. He was left to bleed to death publicly after having his hands cut off and tongue removed as punishment. Arira, a former advisor, betrayed the throne as Richard's informant. His skull was caved in with a medium that represented communication. Arira's wife had hid criminals and rebels in support of her husband and Richard. She was given the small but mortal wound, bound before being left to die in a small confined space, similar to the ones she used to hide the others. Mr. Wright wrote a slander during his coup. His hands were cut off to rob him off of his favorite pastime before being force-fed enough ink to burst from his stomach. Papal and his family were thieves. They were hung facing one another, so the last thing they could steal was that their suffering loved ones. Crazy Tracy was a man who skinned women and wore their flesh. He would wear the face and was a mask and hide what within looked like a seat. The body stuffed to appear with thought it was sitting. That's why the body seemed so much smaller, skinned alive. Syrup kidnapped and sacrificed a child to the black arts. She was forced to watch the bones from her arms and legs to be used as making magic powder before being beheaded. Cuckoo Keeper was a felon who escaped every prison in Hyrule, impaled by a statue that represented freedom. The fishermen were scumbags, drowned within their things attached to fishing hooks. Madame Meow Meow killed her children and fed them to her pets, diced into pieces and served to the animals. The shopkeeper was a powerful criminal, drugs and arm dealer, killed with his wares, magic powder forced down his throat. Taran was a serial offender. He was transformed into a literal beast and then executed. At this point, I felt sick. That low thumping in pace pretty much in the place of music wasn't happy. It was getting slower and duller, as if the sound was trudging along. I spoke with Marin and she explained the rest of it. Kolo into Prison Island. The worst of Hyrule's criminals were sent there before receiving their death sentences from the judge, the owl who had been waiting for an executioner, someone to carry out in his will. I was sent by Hyrule to interact wishes for the throne, leaving their carcasses as a warning to the next group. Marin was innocent. She had been wrongfully sentenced to a gruesome crime she had no part in. She accepted that she would be killed by the executioner, but refused to give Hyrule the satisfaction of fearing it, nor would she let her name be passed around in horror stories. She saved me so that she could tell them they had failed to break her. She asked if I was ready to end it, and I was given the option of yes or no, but choosing no just let me explore the village again. When I pressed yes, the screen faded to white. It then came up to an animation of Link, or Black, sailing away. He was satisfied, happy even. It then cut to a drawing of the library. Marin was lying propped up against it with her eyes rolled back. Her throat and stomach had been cut open, with a huge slash across her face. A lot of care was given to blood and guts. It was disturbing, and the picture was stuck with me long after I turned off the game. A bold front appeared on the front of her reading, "Congratulations." Beneath it was a small black print, was "You're a hero of Hyrule." It fades to black before white text appears at the center of the screen, and no one will ever know you volunteered for it.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.